Hello there, and welcome to the Oldfield Forge Forging Basics. Today's lesson, splat hooks. While not strictly a forging tool, you may find these incredibly useful when organising your constantly growing workshop. If I've been a decent enough teacher so far, then you'll even use an item from every one of my previous Oldfield Forge Basics videos. Although, if you use a drill like I do instead of a punch, I won't be offended. I'm going to start with a 6mm round bar in this, but feel free to use whatever you like. I've previously used 8 or even 12mm for particularly load-bearing hooks. I start with approximately half a metre with the intention of removing what I want later on. But those of you with a keen eye may notice that I bend the back of the bar. It's a surprise tool that will help us later. Begin by heating up the very end, holding the steel flat on the anvil and angling your hammer away from you. Give the very end of your metal a couple of taps and then roll it 90 degrees. Continue to do this until you have a nice sharp square point, only a couple of centimetres long at maximum. Now we have a square point, we are going to round it off. This simply involves the same angles we were just using, but removing the corners of the square taper we just made. Take the 4 corners of the square, creating an octagon. Then the 8 corners from the octagon to create a hexadecagon, or as us blacksmiths refer to it, round. Now heat up the thin point and place the tiny amount over the opposite end of your anvil. The size of a grain of rice is all we're aiming for here. Gently tap the point of the end of the anvil and then roll it back. If the scroll is too open, then gently tap it against the side of the anvil. Repeat these steps until you have a desired size. Now that you have your scroll, keep it cool. Time to break out a former for whatever size your hook is going to be. I can't quite recall who made this one, but I can imagine them being broad-shouldered, tall and handsome, with a comforting yet buttery voice. Continuing to keep your scroll cold, heat up the metal directly behind it, and then, with the scroll facing away from the former, bend it around into the desired hook shape. I prefer going past the 180 degree mark, but that's an aesthetic choice. Now you have made your scroll and hook, keep it cool. Heat up the spine of your hook directly behind the bend. Then, using your hook as a reference point for your angles, forge a square section. For almost every situation in forging, I recommend that a steel be bright orange or yellow. However, this is a rare situation where a lower red heat will actually produce crisper corners as you continue to forge the corners in. Heat up your square section. This is where the bend at the back end of your bar comes in. Cool off your hook and slot it into the former. Turn the whole bar like a key. The whole bar will rotate as the hook is cold and remain stationary. Now you have made your scroll, hook and twist it. Keep it cool. Heat up just behind the twist. Cool off the twist itself and press down on the bar with a chisel. I've got mine made by that same mysterious handsome smith as before. Aim to cut between halfway and 90% of the way through, as long as you can feel you can snap it. You can cut all the way through, if you desire, but you may blunt your chisel and fire a hot hook across the room. Now, the only part you will need to use tongs for. If you don't have some, there's a handsome hold the back end of the hook, lining up with the spine, as the hook itself may wobble and slip when hammering. Heat up the back end you've just chiselled, and with the hook facing the floor, hammer a small section over a corner of the anvil to create a step down. Quench, mark the centre of your flat section and either punch or drill the desired hole. For a bit of extra aesthetic, reheat the hook and give it a brush with a wire brush while it's still hot. While you can do this afterwards, it will remove more of the scale if it's hotter. Now you've cleaned the hook, you can preserve it with some wax if you want to. Heat up the hook over your fire. This won't need to be super hot, only around 100 degrees. When hot, rub a block of beeswax or even a beeswax candle over the hook, paying special attention to the scroll and twist. Then leave to cool on something wooden to allow the metal and wax to cool down at the same rate. I find this results in less chipping. And there we have it. A few new techniques and a useful little storage method for tidying up your forge. And if you want to see more in the future, feel free to subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, then you can either leave them down below or email me at oldfieldvideo@gmail.com. You can even come and have a go yourself at oldfieldforge.co.uk. Thank you for watching.